receivers, you want someone that can get open, which he can, create after the catch, which he certainly can he can take a drag route and, take it 75 yards to the house, and you want that reliable kind of security blanket for your quarterback. And I think Devin Duvernay kind of checks all those boxes. May not be the quickest, but I think you're right. He is going to be one of the fastest wide receivers in a really, really fast group.
Exactly, and then now I was going to revert back to the QBs because I noticed we didn't really get a chance to even break that down, but we already know who's special and who isn't. And then I was going to ask you a question about Tua. So Tua Tagovailoa, obviously, when he got hurt and had surgery this past fall, and just seeing how he is, like he's kind of built. He's a little bit taller. He might be a tad bit taller than Russell Wilson, but they're already comparing him to Russell Wilson, the way his style of play and his size. So what do you think of that? Like, what do you think of him? Like the comparison between him and Russell Wilson?
Yeah, when Tua measured in yesterday, he was 6 foot and 217, and I believe Russell Wilson was like right around there. Like maybe he was just under 6 foot and over 215 pounds. So they have similar builds. I personally don't see that much of a stylistic comparison. I thought at NC State and then at Wisconsin, Russell Wilson could improvise a lot better. We've certainly seen him be able to do that with the Seahawks every season. But inside the pocket, they're similar. I think Tagovailoa is one of the most advanced passers that we've seen come into the NFL in terms of his ball placement. Very, very accurate. He typically knows where to go with the football. At times he can lock on to a receiver and not really be sure where to go with it. But in general, gets through his reads pretty quickly. I still think, even with the hip injury, that he's still going to be a top 10, if not a top 5 selection. The Miami Dolphins would make a lot of sense at number 5. And as the pre-draft process continues, if he shows that he is really improving health-wise, and by the Alabama Pro Day, if he looks to be close to 100%, it wouldn't surprise me if a team ultimately has to trade up inside the top 5 to pick him. There's just been so much buzz about this guy since he was a recruit, really, and then he stepped onto the field at Alabama. And yes, he had a lot of talent at wide receiver and a good offensive line, but he really brought that Alabama offense to a level that it had really never been before under Nick Saban.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that was a perfect explanation of him because, I mean, you were right. There was a lot of hype, involved with Tua coming in as a freshman, and I mean, he sure proved himself. And then you saw how well he can play, and he can handle pressure pretty well too. And I noticed, like, out of all the QBs, I mean, Joe Burrow, obviously, that guy broke some records. I mean, think about it, he won the Heisman. Everybody knows about his story, how fast and how rapid like his hype came to life, and just to see him just going into this year. First round, obviously. I can't wait to see where he ends up. I mean, there's been rumors since he was playing about him going to the Bengals, or Cincinnati. And another thing I wanted to bring up though is Jalen Hurts, because Jalen Hurts. I mean, there was rumors saying that scouts were going to look at him as for a different position. They were considering him for a different position, but like he keeps telling people that he's strictly a quarterback, and that's what he wants to play, and that's what he wants to play in the league. So how effective could Jalen Hurts possibly be, especially in the combine? I'm pretty sure he'll put up some good results. And I mean, how effective do you think he could possibly be after the draft?
Well, yeah, I mean, I certainly think that Jalen Hurts is going to prove to be one of the more athletic quarterbacks in this class. We've seen that since his, true freshman season at Alabama. With his great scrambling ability, he just looks like a very natural, smooth athlete on the field. He made strides as a passer, and I think transferring to Oklahoma to play in that system that had back-to-back number 1 overall picks, Kyler Murray and Baker Mayfield, was a great idea. And before the transfer, I thought he probably was not an NFL passer, that a team, if they wanted to use him, maybe like a Taysom Hill, wildcat formation, maybe throw a pass here or there. I think he's a little bit further ahead than that now. But down the stretch or into the future, I should say, 2 to 3 years down the road, after he has some development, gets with a quarterback coach at the NFL level, I think he could be, in the right system, a solid quarterback. I have some questions about his arm strength, his accuracy, but I do like the fact that the arrow is pointing up, and we saw improvement from him every year when it came to some of those finer details that someone like Joe Burrow or Tua Tagovailoa has down very well. Getting through his reads, understanding coverages, where to go with the football, and then just delivering it accurately. So the arrow's pointing up for Jalen Hurts. Everyone loves the character. Then you throw in the athleticism, and that teams like to get creative with their quarterbacks today. Not all of them are just sitting inside the pocket. Very few. It's kind of decreasing the number of quarterbacks that are just statues back there. And that all kind of leads me to believe that Jalen Hurts is probably going to go somewhere in the middle of the draft, start as a number 3 quarterback or a backup, and a team is going to hope to develop him into kind of a creative, improvising quarterback at the next level.
Yeah, I can see that happening too. I mean, like, because he still has a lot to prove while being added, but like I think he can go further because there was like since he's coming out of Oklahoma, they were comparing him to somebody like Landry Jones, which I thought was ridiculous. But I saw a comparison online about him with Landry Jones coming out because Landry Jones couldn't really. I mean, he was obviously a backup to Ben Roethlisberger for a few years, and to see him go to the XFL and just prove himself with the Renegades, that's a completely different ballgame. But I see a lot more talent involved in Jalen Hurts compared to somebody like Landry Jones.
Yeah, and I think most of that comes from the fact that Landry Jones kind of was that traditional inside the pocket passer, could not really ad-lib very well, did not handle pressure well. I think Hurts is getting better in that area, but he also brings the element of being able, if everything's covered on a third down and he gets from his first read to his second read and still no one's there, he can run and pick up that first down and maybe even turn it into a 15 to a 20-yard gain. Landry Jones has never really had that, didn't have that at Oklahoma, and didn't have it in the NFL, doesn't have it now. So I think, like I said, with the trend of quarterbacks kind of being you need to have someone with the athleticism to create when things are breaking down. A Deshaun Watson, a Patrick Mahomes, Josh Allen, Russell Wilson, even Carson Wentz, a lot of those quarterbacks can do things that really defenses cannot cover because it's outside the structure of the play. Things break down. It turns into backyard football. And I think that is a true selling point that Jalen Hurts needs to talk to teams about and say, look, I can improvise as I'm learning to become a better passer in the NFL.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I can see that happening too. And that was pretty cool how you compared him to some of these top-tier quarterbacks today, which definitely is a huge up for him. And then, now I was looking at another position, which is, the pass rushers. And I've noticed, everybody knows about Chase Young. I mean, there's no need for us to go farther in detail about him. But, Chase Young, chances are there's rumors saying that he might be the first pick. What do you think of that, of him being the first pick over Joe Burrow?
I would be pretty shocked if that happened. It just seems like a clean break right now for the Cincinnati Bengals that the Andy Dalton experiment's over. Their head coach, Zach Taylor, is a young guy going into his second year. They have the first pick in the draft. They didn't win a lot of games last year. Just starting fresh at the quarterback spot. With Joe Burrow, he's from Ohio. He's, near the Cincinnati area. I just think it would make a lot of sense. I mean, you would like to see a little bit more arm strength with him and, 2 or 3 years of the type of production that he had in 2019. But he's riding a lot of momentum. He did a lot of things very, very well that need to be done at the college level before you're an NFL passer. If you take away quarterbacks, though, I think most people would say that Chase Young is the best overall player in this draft. And that's probably why there could be any speculation about him going number 1 overall. I think he'd make a lot of sense for the Redskins at number 2, but not really a slam dunk there. I think they could trade down if a team wants Tua Tagovailoa. But whichever team ultimately picks Chase Young, and I can't see him falling past the number 3 pick with the Detroit Lions. They're getting someone that's going to come in right away, and I can see having a very similar rookie season to what we just saw from Nick Bosa, winning the Defensive Player of the Year, had an amazing Super Bowl, truly instant impact because of his size, because of his strength, and his polish as a pass rusher.
Exactly. And then I noticed, when I looked at the list, too, I saw that Malcolm Roach is also participating in the Combine. And I know, Texas, they pretty much devalued themselves throughout the season. I mean, they started off with they came off to a hot start. They held LSU within a one-possession game. And just to see them just basically plummet for the rest of the season, I mean, it just didn't really make any sense how they just fell apart like that. But what do you think? Where do you see Malcolm Roach in this draft?
Honestly, I've tried to watch as many guys as I can leading into the Combine. I'm up 200 or so. He's not someone that I've scouted yet and put a grade on, so I don't want to, speak on him without actually having watched multiple games of his. But as is the case with a lot of these players, a big combine will make people go back and watch the film, maybe for the first time, like myself, or, reconfirm anything that they saw on film based on what someone does at the combine. So that for Devin Duvernay, for Colin Johnson, any of the other Texans prospects, this week is certainly huge for them because, like you mentioned, they started off so hot. Everyone thought Texas was truly back, didn't have the best end to the season, didn't have a lot of momentum riding into the pre-draft process. So it's a very big week for a lot of these Longhorns.
Yeah, it really is. And then you brought up you mentioned how you haven't been able to scout everybody, which I understand completely because there's a lot of guys on this list for each position. But who would you name some of your top prospects per position that you scouted so far?
Well, yeah, after Chase Young at the edge rusher spot, probably LSU Kayvon Chason, the edge rusher. He, to me, is the second best edge rusher in this class. He's a crazy athlete. I think we're going to see that over the weekend. A little bit smaller, but converts speed to power around the corner. Has a pretty good arsenal of pass rushing moves, so he can beat you with his athleticism, with his power, and just with his hands. So to have that trio at the edge rusher spot's very, very important. I love T. Higgins from Clemson. I love his contested catch ability, his catch radius, his ball skills. He's not going to probably run as fast as Jerry Jeudy and CeeDee Lamb, but I really like that he's always open when he's technically not open because of his physicality at the catch point, and he's very fast down the field after he catches the football. Running back, I really, really like Jonathan Taylor. We already talked about him a little bit. I just think he's a complete package. Maybe not, a Zeke Elliott that's going to go inside the top 5 or even in the first round, but I think he can be a starter right away. Same with J.K. Dobbins from Ohio State. And then staying with the Buckeyes, Jeffrey Okudah at the cornerback spot is, to me, head and shoulders above any of the other cornerbacks in this class. He's over 6 foot. He's over 200 pounds, so he has great size. Perimeter, man-to-man, press cornerback, but he has feet like a slot cornerback. He's as twitchy as they come, finds the football in the air, very good ball skills, very physical in his press coverage, really checks truly all the boxes. I would be surprised if he's not a top 5 or a top 7 pick. And then at defensive tackle, I guess there's probably a few more positions. Javon Kinlaw from South Carolina, to me, and I know a lot of people love Derek Brown from Auburn. I like him too. But Javon Kinlaw at 6'6" and well over 300 pounds with long arms, just has the complete package to be an interior pass rusher. I think Derek Brown is a better run defender, but in the modern day NFL, you have to be able to get after the quarterback, and Kinlaw can do it with power. He can do it with pass rushing moves. Very, very high energy player. And then linebacker, Isaiah Simmons from Clemson. Whether you want to call him a linebacker or a safety, it doesn't really matter. You kind of need to play both positions at the second level in the NFL today. I think he's kind of like a Derwin James. He's a bigger version of that. We'll see if he's as athletic as Derwin James was 2 years ago, who, ultimately went number 17 overall, but has been an all-pro and just been a true difference maker for the Chargers. And then offensive tackle, I'll go with Tristan Wirfs is my number 1 offensive tackle from Iowa, heading into the combine. Super strong, broke records in the weight room at Iowa as a sophomore, which is kind of unprecedented. But I think he's a great athlete too, very controlled in his movements, very rarely, if ever, off balance in pass protection. I think he can match the power that he's going to see from NFL edge rushers, as well as their athleticism. So that's kind of the group after Chase Young, after the obvious guys, the top that I have at all the positions across the board.
And I know this is a little bit off for all the tight ends because as the tight ends, there's not really like extremely dominant tight ends coming into this draft. But I noticed, what were your thoughts on Thaddeus Moss? Because I know he's the son of Randy Moss, and he played for LSU. He's a former former champion, national champion. So just to see Thaddeus Moss in this draft, because he seems like he has like the ordinary talent, in NFL terms. So where do you see Thaddeus Moss?
I think he's going to go somewhere in the middle to back portion of the draft. He's certainly athletic. He certainly does not have, though, his dad's athleticism. He really had an interesting